The Massachusetts State Police are about to interview Courtney Proctor, and we're going to be looking at the forensic linguistics of the interview, the first 20 minutes. It's about an hour long, is it? So we're only going to be looking at the first third. And the real question is, did Trooper Michael Proctor have his own relationship with Julie and Chris Albert? Now remember, the judge in this case, Ms. Canoni, she has shown extreme bias on the bench, and we're about to go into trial 2. And yet these officers from the Massachusetts State Police have been sent by somebody. Have they been sent by Morrissey, the DA? Has he got his sticky fat fingers in this? Or is the judge in direct communication with somebody who is also receiving intelligence from these interviews? We don't know, do we? So Morrissey's communications and the judge's communications and the witnesses' communications with law enforcement, which is what this is all about, need to be thoroughly investigated. And as the politics in the case changes, and we'll be playing the video shortly and going through the forensic linguistics and statement analysis for intelligence from, this is Proctor's sister. In fact, no, let's play the tape a little bit now and listen to what, where we are, and we'll get orientated.
Okay, the body cameras are recording. Today is Monday, March 25th, 2024. The time is 5:02.
So we're going to be looking at everything that she says, but eventually she's going to give her answer that everything went through me. The Massachusetts State Police are looking to find out how Chris Albert, his wife Julie Albert, and here Proctor's sister and Proctor himself, how they're going to hold up in trial 2 of Karen Reed. What exactly is going to come out? Because don't forget, Canoni is doing everything in her power, along with her friend Morrissey, the DA, and certain police witnesses and investigators and certain suspects inside 34 Fairview. They are all coordinating a narrative, and Canoni is ensuring that the jury don't hear the entire truth. And she'll use whatever legalese she can to do that. But the entire trial and communications need to be examined in detail. I don't think Canoni is safe to act as a judge from the bias that we've seen in trial 1 and trial 2. So let's, oh, and here, look, we're going to listen to Proctor, Courtney Proctor. We're going to listen to her say 4 things that she wasn't asked. One is the past. She says there was never any like overlap in schooling. What they're trying to attempt to keep from the jury is the close family ties between suspects, so in this case Colin, who was at 34 Fairview, and others who, because the entire community with the Alberts and others, it's close family. Proctor, the lead investigator into the murder, was seen by some as someone that they'd known over a decade and had babysat for, and whose sister had babysat. It's very close. But of course, if the jury discover how close, it ruins the entire narrative that the police are independent. And then all sorts of questions get asked. Don't forget, Canoni, the judge, she managed to keep 34 Fairview out of the courtroom in the same way that the police, in their bent investigation, didn't go inside 34 Fairview. Refused. No forensics at all. No, some of the witnesses weren't even interviewed until after a year. I mean, it was the Keystone Cops on purpose. Proctor was probably chosen for A, his ineptitude and misogynistic, racist attitude, which has come out in the text, hasn't it? And I'd like to see the communications between others. Hopefully that will all come out as well. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. What Courtney does, apart from the past, she also introduced their events. Nobody asked her if he went to their events. He was not present at any of their functions that they hosted. Now, do you remember Clinton and his "I did not have sexual relations with that woman"? That is an example of personal dictionary. To him, to Clinton, sexual relations was more than just what happened. And you can see his point. In his personal dictionary, it wasn't a sexual relationship. However, he was being deceptive, wasn't he? On purpose. And so people can use personal dictionary to be deceptive, but don't have to feel that horrible, they're almost justifying it to themselves. So that becomes a pattern. So being hosted might be different than going to a funeral, for example. She also introduces time together. Nobody said only. It wasn't like he only hung out with them. So only is used here. And texting. She introduces, it wasn't like he ever had direct contact with her ever, like in text her in a social way. So, what does this tell us? Well, it means that she has prepared for the interview, and obviously she would have done, because what the police are doing here is they're investigating what communications are happening between the police and the suspects. And by a strange coincidence, we have a microcosm of how the police and the suspects, well, these aren't suspects, sorry, because none of them were at 34 Fairview that evening, witnesses to the family relationship, shall we call it. There's a microcosm because within the police investigating Proctor, Proctor's sister, Julie Albert, and Chris Albert, communications are happening between them because the police can't interview them all on the same day. So what the police are investigating, which is to what degree was communications happening back to the suspects from the lead murder investigator, we see a little mini example of during this Massachusetts State Police questioning. Because, of course, afterwards they're all yapping to each other on the telephone, aren't they? And we see evidence of that between them. Right, let's carry on with what she has to say for herself. Remember, she's not a suspect, but she is involved in minimizing the relationship because nobody wants the jury to know that Proctor is a close family friend and they've all known each other for over a decade. Nobody wants the jury to know that, or they'll start putting two and two together. So she's involved in the sense that all of them, from the police to the suspects, to the witnesses, to the DA, to the judge, are involved in a group method to keep from the jury the truth. That's what's happening. So let's press play and see what she has to say for herself.
PM. We are inside a conference room located within the Disabled Persons Protection Unit located at 300 Granite Street, 4th floor in Braintree. I am Detective Captain Eric Benson with the Massachusetts State Police, and I'm joined today by
Captain George Berrios, Mass State Police.
and we're conducting.
Okay, so this isn't some small thing. These are two professional captains, true investigators, experienced. These aren't your what was his name again? Buchanan and Proctor and that shower. These are proper officers.
An audio and video recorded interview of, could you please state your name, ma'am?
Courtney Elburg.
Okay, so she probably uses her married name regularly and doesn't use Proctor. So it's Courtney Elburg, whose maiden name is Proctor. She is the sister of the disgraced lead murder investigator in the Karen retrial, who was essentially involved in the witnesses, what should we call it? Do you think it was a conspiracy? Do you think Proctor was involved at the very beginning? I don't. I think he was the useful fool, chosen because he's close and reliable, and they used him. And there's also linguistic indicators that they're dumping him in the shit, and they're hoping that he sinks and takes the fall and the heat whilst they swan off. But it's not going to happen, because the murder of a Boston cop never goes away, ever.
And it's Elburg?
One L, so Elburg.
Okay, thank you. And your date of birth? And your address?
What was the address again?
And a phone number. Okay, and that's a cell.
Yes.
All right. Any alternative numbers? That's pretty much your best point.
Yeah, and the home phone.
Okay, perfect. And so just to rehash, for the benefit of the record, how we came to be here. Early afternoon today, I gave you a call on your cell phone.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I introduced myself as a detective captain with the state police, and I indicated that I've been asked to investigate or inquire about the relation.
So he's been asked. Who asked him? He's been asked to investigate or inquire about the relationship. So let's hold that. Investigate or inquire about the relationship. He's been asked to, but who by?
Relationship between your brother, who is Trooper Michael Proctor.
Correct.
So notice he was Trooper Michael Proctor, so he's been moved on or rehomed in Karen Reed talk. Michael Proctor has been rehomed, along with many of the others. Has Buchanan been rehomed? The Dancing Queen? And all the others? Who's left? And of course, once the DA is rehomed, and hopefully a trustworthy politician elected, the entire truth is going to come out at a speed which is going to shock the suspects and all involved in law enforcement and the judiciary and the DA's office. Little birdies are going to start singing.
Correct. And Julie and Christopher Elburg.
Yes.
And I indicated that I felt that speaking to you was important to sort of establishing that relationship, because it seemed like you sort of sat in the middle of that relationship.
Yes, Correct.
Essentially accurate.
Correct.
So I asked what your availability was, and it seemed like you had.
So we get a baseline, and we have correct, correct, correct.
Conflicts during the day due to work, but you indicated that you were available this evening.
Yes.
Then proposed that we meet for an interview at this location. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay, and then after confirming that, I left you a voicemail to confirm the same.
Yes.
And then you called, 10 minutes ago to indicate that you were here.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and then we walked up and sat down here, sort of explained again who we were, what we were doing, and asked if you had any questions before we started the tape.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. And just for the benefit of the record, do you know who I am? Have we ever met?
No, I don't remember your name, Captain.
No,
okay.
That's perfectly fine.
But we've never met before.
For the record, I don't believe that I have ever met Courtney.
No, I've never met either of you.
No. And Captain Berrios?
Nor have I. This is the first time we're meeting.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, and so we'll just...
Okay, so as an observation, we sometimes look for over-ingratiation or ingratiation signs. Not necessarily that it indicates that deception is going to occur afterwards, but sometimes ingratiation with law enforcement or over-ingratiation under the circumstances can be an indicator. And when ground truth is looked at, in other words, examples of interviews where after the fact it's known that they are deceptive or involved in crimes or involved in cover-ups and conspiracies, then ingratiation is very often used as a tactic. And if you think about it, when you're a bit dishonest, ingratiation is one of those human instincts to hide the deception. Because who would think that such a lovely, smiling, warm, gracious, enthusiastic to convey the information to us and cooperate, who would think that they would lie or be deceptive or minimize and try to hide the truth of the true strength of the relationship in a murder trial?
Get right into it. Do you know Julie and Chris Albert?
Yes, I know them.
How do you know them?
Julie is the older sister of my friend Jillian, and I met Jillian when we both began junior high.
Okay, so sometimes when somebody goes in for an interview, they have a little bit of preparation, and they can take a deep breath and say, so, and then they can deliver because they've practiced the question that they're going to get, especially if they're in the queue of people who are going to be interviewed, because then over the telephone they can all yap to each other and say, well, what did they ask? And so you have a little bit of time to prepare your question. Generally speaking, after the prepared questions and answers is over, the interview starts to begin to become less structured. So the preparation stage ends and the less prepared stage, where there's good evidence, begins. In saying that, if you think about it carefully, the prepared stage gives an enormous amount of intelligence also, but just not so much the unconscious slips which we can find in the unprepared stage. So let's see what she's done. She's immediately blamed, and we're going to learn later that this relationship is deep, is over a decade. She trusts this family. She lets them babysit. She takes advice from Julie. They've met over 1,000 times. They call each other constantly. And what she will try to do is minimize that, because otherwise the jury or others will put two and two together and say, well, hang on a second. That means that Proctor will have seen little Colin grow up, virtually, and attend funerals, weddings, barbecues, birthday parties, just pass each other on the steps for over a decade. And then he's a suspect in the house where a Boston cop is found dead on the front lawn. And Colin is seen aggressively signaling John O'Keefe in the bar drunk on the evening that John O'Keefe dies. And you can see others in the bar being aggressive and sending texts and attempting to separate John and Karen. What was really going on? They all know. So part of the job is to keep it from the jury. Now, in a case like this, where a hypothesis should fall down is where somebody or everybody or half of them don't play along with the narrative. But when they're all, so you would expect if there is a group effort to keep the truth from coming out, you would expect her to minimize the relationship. If she's just being honest because nobody in the 34 Fairview is a suspect and there's no danger, you don't bother with all the hiding and shenanigans and creeping footsteps around the murder house. It's that sort of feeling you get from all of these witnesses. They're all creepy. Let's carry on.
In 1991, at the Galvin Middle School, we both started there in 6th grade, and that's when I struck up a friendship with.
So remember, she tried to blame it on somebody else first as the real relationship. Now but she can't hold that line for long.
Jillian, and we were friends since then.
So Gillian is the introducer, but she can't keep Gillian's coattails for very long because it's over a decade. But notice how she tries to minimize with it's really Gillian. And the detective, being clever, he will gain empathy with the witness and almost give her the olive branch that he's joining in the subterfuge because she doesn't know. Perhaps he's on side. And you hardly knew her, or how would you know her, or she was so young compared to you, and so of course, Gillian, but then and get her to agree and relax and open up once she gets a little bit of confidence in you. And notice how the officer does that.
Julie is her older sister.
Are you still friends with Jillian?
Yes.
She still lives locally?
Yes.
And how much older is Julie than Jillian and then you?
So I'm gonna be 45. I think Julie. She's 50. Yeah, Julie's either 5 or 6 years older than me. Okay. I feel like when we were freshmen in high school, Julie had already graduated like the year before, so there was probably about a 4 or 5 year age gap.
Okay, so the Julie was quite a bit older, I guess, from a 6th grade standpoint.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah, especially when you're a freshman in high school, and
So did your relationship evolve over time?
Yeah, so that's good, because that helps with minimizing, doesn't it? So gain agreement, good rapport, clever detective, because he knows her job is to minimize. So good question, good observation.
Yeah, so for most of my friendship with Jillian in junior high and throughout high school and a little bit after college, Julie, I knew Julie. I was at Jillian's house a lot, so I knew who she was. But shortly after Julie graduated high school, she had her first child, and I went off to college, so we didn't really strike up. Our paths didn't reconnect until well after I had finished college and moved back.
So we would notice things like self-censorship. So where she says we didn't really strike up, and then she didn't want to finish, so she restarts a new sentence, introduces reconnect. Isn't that an interesting? So the stage of going off to college and then you reconnect when you come back. So there's a connection to reconnect.
From Connecticut, and I was back in Massachusetts, and Julie by then had 3 young boys, and saw her a little bit more often. And I would, if Jillian had her nephews and I was with Jill, like I got to help babysit the nephews and things like that. So it really wasn't until like my mid-20s where I honestly got to really know Julie a little bit more, because in junior high and
Okay, so I mean she's 45 now, and you know junior high, and then you come back and reconnect, and then you spend over a decade babysitting for each other sometimes, but mainly the other way around. And don't forget, Julie's also babysitting for the murder investigator himself. Keep that from the jury. Shh! Auntie Bev, make sure nobody knows.
high school, I was her youngest sister's annoying friends. Like
Right.
it really, I knew who she was, but it really wasn't until later that we made our own kind of friendship.
Okay.
Our own kind of friendship. Are you buying it? Look at the face. The "are you buying it" face. Look at the minimization. Because this friendship at 45 years old, since junior high, is only a kind of friendship. You only go to weddings, funerals, barbecues, see her 1,000 times, text and call each other even more thousands of times. But look what she tries to do. It's made our own kind of friendship. So the minimization begins. And consider the fact that Karen Reed is up against the entire crew who were involved in the attempt to frame her. How scary that must be. And everybody, even people on the absolute outside of the periphery, are willing to go along with the subterfuge and the minimization narrative. Isn't that an awful state of affairs? And it was Karen and Alessi and Jackson and Yannetti and and is it Liza? We don't hear much from her, do we? I should definitely find the clips of her against Canoni. Canoni is so rude.
And so, in your mid-20s after college, you come back here, and then you're still friendly with Jillian, but now you're more peers, with Julie than you were in your childhood because of the age difference. Age difference isn't so.
Yeah, and Julie.
So the captain cleverly now reintroduces. So he gives her confidence, in effect traps her, and now says, but things have moved on.
Would watch her nephews,
but she tries to keep Jillian attached to the train.
We would sometimes help Jillian watch her nephews, and that's how I got to become a little bit closer to Julie.
So now the detective has managed to move it along a little bit, so it now become a little bit closer, whereas before it was only a kind of a friendship.
She was home with 3 boys.
Okay.
She's not quite sure how it's going.
And so over time you got Julie's phone number and started to talk to her and sort of without having to go. Was it a situation when you were younger? Obviously you go through Jillian almost entirely, and then at a certain time.
And notice how the detective gives her comfort, and each time he does, he can get the bark. Yeah. And so the detective will learn now, if ever he starts losing the witness, he can bring Jillian back as a comfort blanket for her.
It sort of became a thing where you would talk to Julie directly, and
yeah, I think a couple of times I might have helped babysit one of the boys from time to time.
So notice I think a couple of times, from time to time. So notice the minimization and the language of time. Everything's minimized, isn't it? I think, might have, may have, possibly, may, from time to time, once or twice. It's all that sort of language which tries to hide that for over a decade you've had Julie round your house 3 or 4 times a week, and you've been yabbering away on the telephone to each other 5, 6, 8, 10 times a day, or however many it is. Thousands of meetings, possibly tens of thousands of communications, but it all has to be minimized to perhaps maybe sort of remember, babysat one of the boys from time to time, which is an entirely different narrative, isn't it? Now, who has helped prepare this narrative?
Jillian must, we could have been on a group text, so yeah, eventually.
So could have been on group text. When someone is trying to minimize or deceive or gaslight, they'll build in constant get out of jail cards, or another way of looking at that is optionality, or another way of looking at that is no full commitment, hedging. And of course it all molds and merges and different temperatures and conditions. So a good example of that is sport. There's so many combinations, and anything can happen in any combination. And so when we're doing statement analysis and deception detection and forensic linguistics, and we're sometimes looking at body language as well, and other factors such as the speed of the delivery of the statement, where it stops, judges, jars, the number of words per hour which they're describing. So somebody might be describing an entire day in a sentence and then describes an entire hour in 40 sentences. So there's a difference, isn't there? So we look at how time relates to the percentage of the narrative. All sorts of ways are being used to assess the individual, to gain human intelligence. And what are we seeing from this person? If we step back, what are we seeing? We're seeing somebody hiding the extent of the truth whilst being careful not to lie directly. And don't forget, most deception is either through omission, in other words, cut that 5 minutes out, don't mention it, or this minimization style of deception. Almost the opposite of putting your best foot forward in the style of deception that you might do in a career or job interview, where somebody's lying their arse off and perhaps they were in the room when the great things happened, but they weren't the leader. But over time they can massage the CV, and so, they had the title, and titles are all different in different companies, aren't they? And they just bullshit at the interview that it was them. And hard to tell because they were there. Anyway, I digress. Let's carry on.
I had my own connection and my own direct contact with Julie.
Okay. And how would you describe your relationship with Julie now, or over the past several years?
So when I got married and my husband and I we actually settled back into Canton, and we had our 2 young kids. Julie, helped.
Okay, so helped. Can you hear the minimization? Can you get linguistic empathy? Can you enter the way that she's feeling? Can you get perspective on what she's trying to achieve? Helped. This is a relationship since high school, and she is essentially joining your family 3 times a week, sometimes 4, looking after your children. Julie, helped. Minimization. Attempting to keep the truth, the extent of the truth, away from the interview. And thus, if you extrapolate this entire narrative that everybody has agreed on, and I wonder, did the DA have anything to do with sending these captains? And is the information passed back to Canoni, Ms. Canoni? And when did Ms. Canoni make certain rulings? And when was certain information available to her? These are all questions which need answering. I'm quite sure as the FBI investigation picks up speed that Ms. Canoni might be invited in for a chat. But let's carry on and see what Courtney Proctor has to say.
When I went back to work, I didn't want to put my kids in daycare. Her boys were at that point in high school and middle school, so they didn't need her as much, and she didn't work. So it was someone familiar that one could be like, help me with watching my kids. Yeah. And I just didn't want to put my kids in a daycare facility. So
okay, which is understandable. So when we see the reasons why explained, we do put in a flag, and we put in the flag of justifying reasons why. She's admitting the closer and closer and closer relationship, but it's not necessarily volunteered, it's dragged out of her through good questioning and through sometimes giving her a comfort blanket that we're still on your side, it's okay, we're part of the law enforcement that's involved in it all. This is just a process, don't worry about it. So slowly the truth is drawn out, but it's reluctant and it's rarely given. So is she conveying? Is she being cooperative? Or is she sticking to an agreed narrative?
Parents watched my kids for a few days, and then Julie watched my kids for a few days, and it worked out. It was someone who I knew.
Okay, so now it's someone who I knew, not someone that has essentially become family, that we go to the weddings and funerals and barbecues and round each other's houses 3-4 times a week, talking tens of times, texting, WhatsApp. No, that must be hidden in the language. Someone who I knew. Individual sentences mean nothing by themselves. So it's only the fact that we're seeing this constant minimization, this constant denial of the relationship, this constant having to drag it out of her bit by bit that it is closer, it is closer, it is closer, it is closer. Reluctantly ground given, ground given. Can you see the preparation is now over and the struggle begins, and also the captains are being less conciliatory?
Someone who family I've known for a long time and I trusted, and she helped provide daycare for my children. So her and I definitely got closer over the last few years.
Concession. Definitely got closer over the last few years because she can't keep this pretense up. Definitely got close. If you are going to pressurize me or push me for a little bit closer to the truth, well, definitely got closer over the last few years, because certainly we weren't close before. Do you see the language?
Because she helped watch my kids.
Ah. And now we have the reason why, which we would highlight in blue, because it's a very important word in analysis, by the way, as is the word and. They tell us an awful lot. Words like and because and other small words and words which relate to reasons why are very often produced at the unconscious level. And very often, because the unconscious doesn't know it's meant to go along with the lie or the deception, it will make a mistake and it will give the tense or the article or the pronoun for the truth, which doesn't fit the lie or the deception or the gaslighting. It's like a tell in poker. It's a little error made by the brain. Because beautifully, we are truthful beings, and the unconscious speaks in truthful language.
Right. So we talk pretty regularly because of that.
Ah, so now we have pretty regularly dragged out of her reluctantly. Pretty regularly. Everything has to be minimized in the language. This isn't necessarily being chosen. It's because the instruction exists of the minimization, of the keep it absolutely to a minimum. And so the brain selects, having been given the instruction of the narrative, it selects the words by itself and consistently, as we can see.
How many days, when did she start watching her kids?
So when she watched for me in the summers, and that was, so I was born in 2013. I went back to work 3 months later, so she watched a couple of days a week for me until I went off to preschool. And then there was a period where before.
Okay, so here we're getting a lot of justification. She's gone off in her mind. She is struggling to accept the close relationship. And so we're getting a little bit of a waffle. We have a slight change in percentages of the language note.
Born where Julie didn't help at preschool, and then
we're getting a lot more pontification, aren't we? Julie is now being spoken of much more fluidly as an accepted friend. It's almost as if the prepared, let's minimize everything, she's tiring of it. The pretense is becoming burdensome to her. This is the beginning of her taking off the weight of the deception requirement and just accepting. So let's listen for the change.
I was born in 2016, and then she watched for 2 to 3 days a week for me up until he went to kindergarten, which was 2 years ago.
Okay, so between 2013 with a small break and 2022.
Yeah.
So for 9 years or so.
Yeah, off and on. Watched my kids 2 to 3 days a week.
Okay, and so the captain will see the off and on requirement before acceptance from the witness. She requires the phrase off and on because that's the narrative, and she doesn't feel comfortable without off and on as the agreed phrase. The captain, who's probably a well-trained elicitation, well, he's an interviewer, isn't he? So he knows how, he's probably been trained. My point being, he uses the comfort blanket phrase back to her, the minimization phrase. You can see it gives her that linguistic comfort that she's being heard, that the minimization is being understood.
Okay.
3 days a week for me, up until he went to kindergarten, which was 2 years ago.
Okay, so between 2013 with a small break and 2022.
Yeah.
So for 9 years or so.
Yeah, off and
on.
Watched my kids 2 to 3 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah. For about a decade, off and on, she watched my kids. Great minimization. 2 to 3 days a week, maybe 4. Don't say that bit. And now look at the face on her. Yep, you've said it. You've said the truth. It was dragged out of you. But off and on, it's okay, Courtney. Off and on.
All right. And would you watch other people's kids at the same time, or was it just your kids?
It was just my kids.
Okay. And obviously over the
It was just my kids. I can't even say I hired a business. Nope. For over a decade, she's round your house 2 or 3 times a week. Basically, you're at friends' swimming pools, birthday parties, funerals, weddings, everything. Proctor, the investigator, is around. He's around too, out of 1,000 times on the doorstep. How many times was he there? He knows Colin. He's seen Colin grow up. Colin was a ring bearer. Let's drop the pretense. Now, the pretense exists for a reason. The entire group have agreed a narrative, and they're all performing the pantomime poorly because they're all awful liars. They're all awful. Not a single good liar amongst them. It's obvious to everybody. There's not a statement analyst or forensic linguistic expert in the world who can't see through these idiots. It's obvious. You don't even need to be a statement analyst or a forensic linguistic expert. You just have to listen. It's that clear. Now, remember the butt dials? Do you remember the butt dials? And they had the audacity to expect everyone to swallow that rubbish, didn't they? And if you add up the mathematics to butt dial someone and for them to pick up their telephone and answer it, there's a certain mass because A, you have to go into contact, select them, call them, then the phone has to ring, then they have to answer, and then you have to speak together for 22 seconds, which you deny, and then one has to end the call, and then the other one has to end the call. And of course, each of these actions in the specific order that is required on the telephone has a percentage chance against it. And so you might say, well, what are the chances of them making a butt dial to each other on murder night and speaking for 22 seconds? And somebody might say, oh, well, that's unlikely. But think about it more closely. The action of picking up the telephone and making it alive, you might say that's a percentage. Shall we say 50-50? If you're making love and your telephone's on the bed, which was the excuse, wasn't it? And then to select a particular person who was there, who was with you at the party on murder night. What's that? Is that another, what's that, a 50 to 1? So then you have a 50-50, and then you've got a 50 to 1. Each of these things, each of these steps increases the odds. So that when you add them all up, it gets ridiculous and it gets into the millions to 1. So when you put that aside, the butt dials being mathematically at millions to 1 odds of it all occurring between the suspects on murder night with John O'Keefe's body lying outside in the cold, well, we also have another type of mathematics, because for everybody involved in constructing the narrative to be able to show significant deception markers, all of them, starts turning mathematically into astronomical chances. It's impossible, increasingly mathematically impossible, for everybody to come up with the same narrative showing the same deceptions, and all being coached in a similar way, not to give timelines, not to place people in locations, everyone acting creepy and suspicious and deliberately minimizing and keeping from the jury the truth, cutting up SIM cards for, I mean, just the whole thing is awful. And what's so awful for the United States of America is it's on the world stage and it's a complete and utter pantomime. Thank God you have brilliant jurors and brilliant lawyers to highlight the absolute audacity of the criminals who have been involved in orchestrating this narrative. Let's carry on.
So that time you became somewhat closer,
Yeah.
Because,
She's got my kids.
daily interaction,
Yeah.
and she has your kids.
Yeah.
Okay, so the captain starts to increase. Did you notice he now says daily interaction? He's dropping the 2 or 3 times a week, and he's pushed it to daily interaction, which would be calls, WhatsApps, whatever social media they're using, catching up 3-4 times a week on each other's doorstep, helping their family, their close family. The captain is doing a wonderful job.
So, okay. In terms of socially, obviously, you had a sort of a business relationship in some way with her, friendly business relationship, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it was business because I paid her. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Business because I paid it. I mean, the captain is just rocking it, making her feel comfortable.
But aside from that, did you? What was your social interaction? Your pure social interaction like with her?
I like, we didn't hang out. I was a young mom, so it wasn't like I was going out a lot, and she wasn't really someone that went out a lot.
Okay, so for over a decade, I mean, you've known her since high school, and now she's 3-4 times a week round your house, talking every single day, WhatsApping every single day. But notice the Clinton-esque ability for people to use personal dictionary. So if you say we didn't hang out because I was, and then notice the because, the justification. Well, what is hanging out? Is hanging out being a 22-year-old drinking sparkling wine at the wine bar and dating? Is that hanging out together? or is hanging out when you're young mothers. Do you see the possibility that personal dictionary can be used for gaslighting and deception? I'm not saying it is in this case, but be aware of it. So watch her use of personal dictionary now.
We talked regularly.
Okay, so talked regularly, but not hung out. Everything, well, I won't repeat myself, otherwise it's just too boring, isn't it?
She honestly gave me advice about kids.
She honestly gave me advice about kids. That was it. That was it, Your Honour. Over this past decade, forget the barbecues, forget the weddings and the ring bearing for little Colin, forget the funerals and the wakes and seeing each other 1,000 times on the doorstep at least, if not more, and the tens of thousands of phone calls. Forget all of that. Let me be honest. Basically, she gave me advice about kids, and that was it. There is no other relationship. Rumours that Proctor, the investigator in the Karen Reid case, is essentially a family friend of all the suspects is not true. It comes down to Julie Albert gave me advice about kids. And there you have it. And she even has the face and the hand to go along with it. Audacity.
Like when one of the kids had the stomach bug, she would be someone.
Yeah, she would be someone. You know, it's kind of like, you know, we've known them and their family. And it's kind of like, you know, let's say one of the kids has got a stomach bug and she would be someone, you know, at random. If a kid had a stomach bug, she would be someone
I would go to say.
I would go to someone if my kid had a stomach bug and say,
What do I do?
what do I do? There we are. And that's it. That's the extent of the relationship. Rumours of anything else are spread by my enemies. It's ridiculous.
I don't have an older sister, and sometimes my mom, you know, her advice was from when my brother and I were young in the 80s, and things change, and there's...
And now she's going to start waffling on because she's uncomfortable with the gaslighting and the deception. And you'll notice that gaslighters and deceivers, at the point of deception, their language increases in justification and waffle. Did you notice that with her?
ways to swaddle kids than my mom knew. So sure. Julie was someone who just raised 3 boys, and I would ask her lots of questions about infants and toddlers. I saw her a lot.
Well, look, I mean, that brings us only up to 11 minutes in. I do apologize. I must have been speaking way too much. I was hoping to do the first 20 minutes, but that does bring us to the end of this evening's Periscope. So please do remember to like if you got some value out of the video. That really does help. I've noticed in the last video, especially, the like percentage was high and it got higher views. So I appreciate everyone who does that for me every single time. And I see that you do that. So thank you. If you haven't yet subscribed, do find the subscribe button. It's free, obviously, and it helps me. And it also tells YouTube that you like human videos. You'll get less AI, so that helps the two of us. And don't forget to comment as well, because some of the backstory, some of the connections, some of the unknown parts of the Karen retrial often come out in the comments, and you know, stuff that I didn't know about, which is a lot, because I don't know an awful lot about the case even now. You know, I learn more every single day. Right, that's it. Let's chat in the comments, and I shall see you in the next video, which I hope will be tomorrow. Perhaps we'll carry on either with Julie or with Courtney. Okay, chat tomorrow.